Have you ever dreamt living the life of a foot soldier, moving its way up towards the heights of king or knightdom in the medieval times? Well then, there might be the game for you, and that's Of Kings and Men. And this morning I got something nice in my mailbox. It was a free code for Of Kings and Men from the dev team, so thank you very much. And I thought, well, let's give it a go. It's in early access, and when I say early access, I do really mean early access. It definitely isn't alpha. There's a lot of features missing. What it's meant to be is a CRPG, which is a mod for Chivalry. It basically brought in the RPG elements and leveling up your gear, and also sort of like a persistent battle. And in this game there's something called Epic Mode, where there's a campaign where the basically all the fights that you do in the game progress the campaign map. There is meant to be a mode where you can build castles and have your own factions and clans, but I don't think that's fully implemented yet, or at least I didn't see it, or I couldn't access it in my version anyway, or I was missing it. The battles can get up to 200 people, and they are pretty hectic. The highest one I got into was roughly about 150, I think, at the time. I'm not sure whether they're still testing the 200s, or if I just hadn't been connected to one. The gameplay is quite reminiscent of other medieval sort of slashers like Mount and Blade and Chivalry, but it does have its own system. The combat system is based on stances and directional stances. You basically move the mouse to move to a stance, and you'll perform a slash based on that stance. And also that stance will also block in the location that you're holding the stance. So if an enemy is going for you, you want to try and block in the place that matches their stance. And that's sort of the skill to learning, overcoming the combat system. And at the moment, I'm still pretty rubbish, but I've definitely got into quite a few good duels. And the direction system does feel very fluid, and it really works. I like it. I've got to say that. It's fun, and it does seem like there's a lot of skill involved. The developers have said that there's not too much in the way of balancing at the moment, and it seems that two-handed weapons are a bit overpowered at the moment, even though I was sort of dead set on leveling up my sword, my falchion, I don't know. But I was using a sword and shield most of the time. Bows, I was absolutely rubbish with them. I don't know if anyone else was good with them, to be honest. But the problem is, at the moment, there's nothing to say what you were killed by, so it's hard to tell. In the kill feed, there's just a feed of deaths and kills, and it doesn't say what you're killed by, so I don't really know whether it's effective or not. The shields also act as a blocker, even if you're not right-clicking. You can right-click and basically aim the shield to block where you want, but also whilst it's in your hand it will block attacks. So if you're holding your sword in a stance, then where your shield is, it'll block enemies hitting you. So it is actually quite skillful in that regard as well. You can swing your body around to in that regard. There's also a push, which is the Q button, which pushes people back. I haven't really been effective with that. And there's also a kick. I'm going to say that I'm not skillful enough to use these two yet. And what I'd say the combat is like at the moment is a bit like the lightsaber dueling in the Jedi Knight series. That was always fun, and it does seem good now too. What are the frame rates like? Well, to be honest, in most of the fights it seemed to be above 60 as far as I could tell, but I tried to use my FPS counter on Shadowplay, but for some reason it didn't want to show on the game. I could record with Shadowplay, but I couldn't seem to see the FPS, so that was a problem. There was a bit of an FPS drop when we were in the castle fights, but the open maps were fine. I don't know why the castle fights were a bit more laggy. I don't know whether it's just because so many people were pushed into a little area, because you're basically fighting in a very small building, a bit like PlanetSide 2, I guess, where hundreds of people get stuck into one building. The UI is pretty basic. You see names at the moment, and as I said, there's a kill feed, but it doesn't show you who's killed or anything like that. Also with the HUD, there's not really much indication who the enemy is, apart from the fact that they don't have an arrow above the head. And because everyone's in default gear at the moment, because nobody's really leveled up, everybody just looks the same. They're basically all in this white gear with the very basic chainmail on, and they've got the default weapons. Some people have decided to go back to the peasant gear, and I think that maybe people will start on peasant gear if they're not an early access backer. I don't know if that's the case, but everyone seems to start with some armor at the moment. Leveling up the character seems pretty quick. I don't know whether this will slow down later on, but I got a level in 2 battles basically, and I've got to the next level now, and that was pretty much in just another 2 battles after that. I'm over 3/4 of the way to my new sword, and I've already leveled up my armor. It doesn't really seem that at least the first step of the armor is that much of a buff. I don't feel overpowered when I'm using it. I was easily killing enemies with that armor on when I was still in my level 1 or whatever you call it gear. So I'm not sure how much of a disparity between the noob and the elite there will be, but that was always sort of like a problem with the CRPG and sort of system, that there were people that were absolutely godly just because of their gear. Like, you couldn't even pierce some of their armor, and then you had the peons that started off and they were just useless. The devs have said that skill should trump equipment most of the time, so and that seems the case at the moment, but obviously it's very early days. Graphics wise, the game looks alright. It's not exactly something to write home about, but it looks nice. It looks nice. The lighting's good, and the models are fine. And without seeing all of the sets of armor, it's hard to tell how intricate things get later on. I think the armor at the moment is basically the newbie white armor, so we all look a bit rubbish at the moment just because we aren't kitted out. And obviously my character now looks a bit more awesome, to be fair. So what's it feel like? What's the atmosphere? Well, the initial charge and clashes are pretty epic, especially when you've got the hundreds of players in the map. Basically, the T button allows you to scream, so when you're running in, charging, screaming, having like 100 people on either side screaming and clashing in the middle is pretty epic. Even though I feel that once you got into the middle, you're actually at a bit of a disadvantage. So you really want to be going around the sides and trying to flank people, or just sort of keeping your distance from the massive clashes, because it's so easy to get flanked and hit in the back in those fights. The castles also look pretty cool, and the fights in there are definitely something that is more special, and I'll be looking forward to those mostly. And I think that was one of the features they were talking about. You can build castles, you can build villages in the final release, but it's not in yet. I don't know how long it'll be until it's in, but there we go. The game modes are a little underwhelming at the moment because basically there's a flag in the middle of the map, and the flag's capture can override your killing, basically. There's one mode, in particular, the mode that's worst is when you have, basically, you only have one life, like Counter-Strike or whatever, and you're fighting to the death, and then your team, even though that there's so many of you left and then only a few of them, they capture the flag and it's all over. But it's like, the flag capture's quite short, especially if you've got lots of people on it, so it just doesn't feel fulfilling. I just wish they get rid of the flag completely and just have the death mode, the sort of like death match, and maybe like highlight the last 5 people on the map once it gets to that, because otherwise it lasts forever, because you can't find them on the map. Anyway, there's a lot of promise with this game. Something I really would like is a lot of gore. I just think that in a medieval game you need gore, and at the moment there isn't any. I don't know whether it's planned or not, but gore really defines a sort of slashing, breaking of bones. Think Berserk in the UK and US release, not UK and US, but the Western release, they're saying they're going to add extra gore. It's because we love gore. Gore's great. But there's not that much bone crunching or blood spewing or, anything like that. There's no gibbing at the moment. Hopefully there will be some, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how sieges are going to evolve either. There might be vehicles, and there's not horse riding yet, but I'm fairly sure that's also planned. Either way, it's got potential, and at the moment it's fun to play, and I'm definitely going to be filling some of my time playing it and leveling up and seeing how it progresses, and definitely keeping a sharp eye on it. Whether it's worth your money, I'm not too sure. It's actually only £15, so it is actually an alright amount for an early access game. It's not ridiculous like some games, No Man's Sky. It's actually at a decent price. And if you go on Greenman Gaming through my link, then you can get it for £13 if you log in, which is, they've changed the discount codes. You don't have voucher codes anymore, you just log in. Something else I want to mention is that whatever you do, don't press Control and K, because people are saying it's fire arrows, it gives you fire arrows, or that it'll give you a dick out for Harambe, or anything like that. Controlling K is the suicide button. I want to kill this meme right now. So don't press Controlling K. That's the one thing I can leave you to not do in this beta, or alpha even. Anyway, what does everyone else think? Do you think it looks interesting? And what do you think of the potential of the game? Is anyone else going to play it? Is anyone else going to get it? Be sure to let me know in the comments section below. If you thought this was a chivalrous video, give it a like. If you thought it was just hack and slash, give it a dislike. And if you want to see more of me and my content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you all very much for watching. Until next time, Joshino.